Hi everyone, uh, in the class and also in the class watching from YouTube and in this sort of private class group. Welcome again to episode 5 of 20 Questions with Jason Zach. And in today's lesson, or in today's episode as you call it, we are going to discuss about rhythm. We are going to talk about all sorts of, basically it's called all things rhythm. So we are trying to basically explore the world of rhythm through all sorts of questions by some of the students and some of my friends and followers on Instagram and YouTube who who've come on board on this class. Right, so the questions are going to be, I guess, probably at different levels. The students are probably, some of them have just started learning, some of them are experienced musicians, some of them are producers, some of them are drummers, singers, keyboard players, and so on. But hopefully that hopefully this talk helps all of you. And if you have, please put on your uh, if the class students can put on their videos, it'll be awesome. And another thing, for the guys who are watching and for the students in the class, you can put on your instruments and probably play along if we have an exercise or two to learn. And if you have a book, paper, or whatever it may be, get it out and let's start learning. Even I have a nice book. Of course, it's some digital book, so you'll get to see it on the screen. And whoever wants a copy of the notes can obviously write to us and we'll send you a copy. Right, so let's get started. There are quite a few people on this group. It's great to see a lot of students come on board. I don't know how many questions we are going to do today. We will try our best to hopefully answer all of them. So let's just get started with someone probably at random. We'll start with Nikhil. Nikhil, if you're there, could you ask your question?
Hello.
Yeah, hi Nikhil. Could you please
Hello,
put on
sir.
your video if possible?
Yes, sir. Actually, I wanted to ask about the feel of the rhythm means how to maintain the feel. Actually, means if I'm playing the means in 4 by 4.
Yeah.
So how to maintain the feel means how to means feel means how to maintain the feel on the snare with hi hat means you can
Okay.
understand no.
Yeah, if you can just explain it a little bit more in depth, what do you mean by this feel? Are you referring to your timing? Are you referring to keeping time, playing with a metronome, playing with your bandmates, or something else? What do you understand by feel, first of all, or playing in
Yeah,
feel? Yeah.
playing in yeah, metronome also,
Okay.
and then playing in with my band also, and
Right.
while playing a groove,
Yeah.
then how to understand that where I have to put the ghost note, where I have to give the accent, like
Okay.
that.
Okay, so yours is a combination of a few questions. Let me first try and explain what the word or what the term feel is, in terms of time, at least from the perspective of time, right? You have a lot of things which you could explain in terms of feel, but if you think about it, any kind of groove or anything you make, right, needs to have a consistent or a steady pulse. So what you are trying to do, or what your intention is you are trying to get not only yourself, but you are trying to get primarily the audience to move to what you're trying to do. So this is the pulse. I don't think the audience is going to move to a complicated drum groove like maybe dung ta dung 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 ta dung ta dung 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 ta. In fact, as I am beatboxing this for you all, even my head is moving to the pulse, right? So for you to kind of walk into a band room or walk into a studio or walk into a any practice or professional environment as anyone, as a drummer, keyboard player, or guitar player, or even a singer, what you need to do is definitely feel the pulse yourself while doing anything, right? So you could feel the pulse, and once after you feel the pulse, we then look at timing and rhythm in a couple of more in-depth ways. One is you try to build a pattern and you choose a time grid, also what I actually call as a time feel, for want of a better word. So a time grid is essentially where you tell yourself, I'm playing my drum groove or I'm playing my chord pattern, and I'm choosing to divide the beat evenly or straight time as we call it, or I'm choosing to swing the time or go a little later, than the division point, or I'm in the world of triplets. So first off, you're setting a grid. So let's say if you set a grid as a 16th note grid, okay, the first thing to realize is if you are on a 16th note grid, it is independent of the time signature. It could be 3 beats per bar, it could be 2 beats per bar, it could be even 5 beats per bar. So the way you divide a beat is independent of the grid, or is independent of the time signature, right? So now my time signature is 4 beats in a cycle or 4 beats in a bar, and now you have to get to terms with each of these beats and subdivisions while you're playing music. Let's say you want to just accent at the 2E. You want to generate some music where you're trying to feel the 2E. You could develop a practice routine, maybe, so right now I'm actually playing the trying to play the 2E a bit louder, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. Feeling that 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 2 E. Of course, I'm a keyboard player, but you get the idea with drums or with any instrument. If you slowly feel this, and if you also watch my, okay, what are we trying to do right now? We're trying to do the E of the 2. So that's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a takaj. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. So as I'm saying it, I'm also moving with the pulse of the song, with the beat of my song. And I'm trying to conquer the E of the 2, which is a very nice energetic subbeat, isn't it? If you are trying to conquer the beat number 2 or beat number 3 or beat number 4, you get a kind of a lazy vibe. You get a vibe of relaxation. I guess when we come to a few more advanced rhythm questions, we may talk about this a bit further in the class. Okay, so what's very important to note is anything which is off the beat, off the normal beat, is going to sound excited and very, yeah, energetic. So for you as a composer, or for you as the player, it's going to be very, I mean, it initially will be tough for you to feel this with the pulse. So I repeat, it's going to be tough or challenging or exciting for you to feel these offbeat divisions while also feeling the pulse. So your body, or rather your I would say, I guess for want of a better word, your soul, your inner rhythm being, or your inner time clock, or your inner sense of time has to still feel the pulse. But when you feel the E against the pulse, that is where you're going to not only be better at time, more importantly, you will enjoy time. So that is for me a great way to improve your sense of feel. You have to be relaxed, you have to enjoy, and you have to also be able to respond to your fellow bandmates while practicing with them. If you are not able to maintain a pulse, or if you are doubting your ability to hold this pulse, it means that you're not going to communicate well to your friends, whoever you're playing with. So whatever groove you give people, or whatever groove they give you, or whatever pattern they give you, ultimately you need to understand each of these subdivisions but enjoy them over the pulse. I hope that's making sense, right? So a lot of people just try to count this E, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, but the way I'm doing it right now is there's no excitement. 1 E and a 2 E. Like, I want to feel a kind of a little shock going through my system. And that may not be conventional, because it's not something you want to write in a music book, I guess, to feel like you're getting a shock at the E. but that's the truth. I mean, ultimately, people are going to move their head to the pulse, and what are they going to do after that? They are going to get out of their chair and try to dance. For that to happen, from the perspective of the listener, the musician playing for the listener has to play with passion and play with enjoyment and play with excitement. So when you are practicing, you should also acknowledge the fact that these offbeats are tough. And when you acknowledge that it is tough, you will practice it that way. And when does it become tough? When there's a pulse running. So develop an exercise or develop a drum groove or anything so that you focus on maybe one subbeat a day. Maybe you could focus on the e's, the ands, or the ers, one subbeat a day, and just see where it takes you. And always try to be creative. Don't try to say that I just want to practice the e. That's not how you do it. You want to feel the e. As you rightly said at the beginning of your question, you're trying to feel these things a bit better. So the word feel requires practice, but also requires you to try and compose something around the fact that you want to present this to the listener. So get used to everything and get it to be into your subconscious system, and then hopefully over time, when you walk into a studio or when you walk into a band practice, and even if someone hurls the metronome at you, my argument with a thing like the metronome is, why do you need to? Yes, you need to follow it, that is true. But what if you already have good time? If your sense of timing is already good, the metronome just serves as a simple guide or a simple way for many musicians to sync together. So the metronome shouldn't be like a master controlling you. It should never be that. And another way in which I like to practice is actually set the metronome as slow as you can, right? I would advise all of you, if you have the time, you watch my YouTube video. I've done a nice detailed lesson on how to use the metronome. And most of those approaches which I've talked about are creative approaches. There's no science and maths and that sort of thing. It's all creative music, which the metronome ironically has sort of inspired the player to make the music with, right? So that's a bit about feel and timing. I hope this was clear. Some other people had questions on accents, so I will get to that later. So in general, if I have to give you all one exercise, let's take the 2E and play music such that you focus and accent hard and drive the E of the 2, which is the second subbeat if you divide by 4. But while driving the E of the 2, move your head really well to the music. So if I try to play something, and if you follow me, you'll probably see that my head is consistently moving with the pulse. One E and a E. That's the E of the 2. Make that your friend, I guess. And build a groove around that. Okay, something like that. Hopefully that helps, right? Yeah. Thanks for your question. We'll now move on to Avran. I think you have quite a few questions, so we'll just probably take one of your questions, Avran, if you're there.
Yeah, yes, sir. First question I asked is, how does one find the time signature of a song that's not in 4x4? Because we are so used to 4x4, we've grew up listening to Western music, and then it's basically embedded into my system itself, that 4x4. Now I want to kind of get out of it and start other stuff.
Well, yeah. So your question is, how do you identify it, or how do you compose on it, right?
Yes, sir. And also, if we listen to a song which is not in 4x4, and then how do we identify what is the time signature of the song?
Okay, great. So I'll give you maybe two steps to kind of figure this thing out. Again, there are a lot of you with accent questions and this that, but his question is, how do you identify a song which is not 4x4, which is not traditional? And I'm hoping that by identification, one could also hope to maybe play your own music on that particular time signature, right? So the first thing, I mean, I have learned, I'll try to tell you this in maybe chronological order, or at least with my musical learning journey. The first thing, and this has all been taught to me by musicians. I haven't really seen this in a book. Especially topics like rhythm are seldom mentioned in books. You may find things like chord theory, you may find notation, you'll find obviously elaborate ways on how to use rhythm symbols, but then you don't find ways to use that rhythm, right? So this is where you should rely on your fellow musicians or bandmates. So I'll just tell you a few things which I've learned in with odd time and see where things go from there. The first point I guess I would like to talk about is the phrase, right? So when it comes to a musical phrase which you try to accept as a listener or as a player, you have to understand that a phrase is like a sentence. It's like a normal English sentence, I guess. In the sense, like, you don't have to, you're not governed by how many words you speak. You're not governed at the fact that sentence 1 has to be equal to sentence 2 in terms of speed of talking it or speed of reciting it. That is more poetic, I guess. For poems, you da 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 gada 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 bada 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 gada gada gada. So that is more like a poem, which actually kind of makes a nice vocal tune also in some respects. But a musical phrase is more like a sentence you want to speak, right? And you're trying to make that rememberable for the listener. So let's say I build a phrase in very, very small increments, right? And let's say I like the phrase to be either a phrase built out of 3 plus 4 beats. I'm kind of don't like 4 plus 4, that's a bit boring. So I want to try a phrase which is 3 plus 4, or maybe I have built a phrase which just happened organically in the shower or something, which is 3 plus 4, you know. So it could be just something you speak. Dagged, 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 da. So it's just a combo of 3 and 4. So usually most musicians are not going to be that uh, interested in counting all the way up to such a big number. Like for musicians, even 7 in this case is a big number, or even 11 is a big number, 13 is a huge number, right? Of course, with prime numbers, the thing about timing and time signature, with prime numbers you can go on, right? Because a prime number is only divisible by itself and 1. So that's why some musicians like to write on 13, some musicians like 17 or 31. Is 31 prime? I guess it is, possibly. Yeah. Yeah, I'm quite good at maths today. Anyway, so if you're trying to build a phrase, a 3 plus 4 musical phrase, just look at it in a very simple way. Let's say I want to build it. I think if you try building it, you can start identifying it easier, because you're going to be like, those artists probably are also thinking this way. So a lot of drummers, especially bands like Dream Theater, Mike Portnoy, Mike Mangini, the new drummer, they always in their lectures, I watch a lot of drum lectures on YouTube. I keep following drummers. So they keep saying, for odd time signatures, counted in smaller bits and pieces, right? So as younger musicians, we had no other option but to do this. Especially in my youth, there was Dream Theater going on, right? So because all of us were Dream Theater fans, so when you're a Dream Theater fan and a musician, you need to play Dream Theater music or bands like that in the progressive rock field. So the only way to count it was like that. So it never occurred to me that I need to know that it's 7 by 8 or 17 by 16 or 31 by something. I never even bothered about that, and I don't think any drummer friend or guitar friend would ever think that. They would just play the phrase, then we slow it down and we break it into bits and pieces so that we can digest it. Maybe it's because we were very simple musicians back then. I'm sure I still am in terms of counting, because even I may be as bad as you in determining what the overall time signature is, because the artist may really confuse the hell out of you. They'll put so many accents to a point that even something which was 4 by 4 will not seem like anything close to 4 by 4. So my point is, why bother? There are some Beatles songs also which are very odd time, but I don't think the Beatles wrote it to want to play on odd time. They just wrote it because the phrase was that long in length. So if I give you an example now with 3 plus 4 and just do just a melody. And I'm building it with simple patterns, right? I'm just doing going up by 3 and then so I'm trying to go up the scale in 3 beats, 1 2 3 1 2 3 4, and here I'm breaking it up to make it interesting. Otherwise it'll be boring. No, it'll be this is a very busy 7 or a very obvious 7, but it is still a 7. So to make it an interesting 7, you can say here I want to play all the beats, here I want to play some beats, but I'll still count 4. So maybe this tune. So now if we drive this concept further, let's add another 3 to the party. And now what does this become? It's just simple maths. It adds up to 10. But I don't see the point of knowing this unless you're in a maths class. Right? It's da ga da dung tung da 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 ga da dung tung da 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 dum pum da 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 dum pa da da da. So you should try to make this musical, right? And for all you know, the artists you are trying to listen to are also trying to make the same thing musical. Let's try and go to the deep end and see if I can figure out a bass line which could constitute 3 plus 4 plus 3, which is something, which is 10. So what if it's 10? I want a phrase on this because I think it's cool to make one and it's possible to make one. You know, so you can do 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 da, da, da. Yeah, let's try something bluesy. Try to accent a bit. I hope I'm doing 3 plus 4 plus 3. Is it? 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. I guess so, hopefully. Yeah? Let's slow this down. Even I may be messing up. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. Yeah. So the whole way in which we composed whatever we did just now was just on that principle. So I like to keep it very simple because ultimately, why learn all the maths when you can't make it into a song? When you can't enjoy a song? So if you find a song which is very hard 7, like really strict 7, like dagga 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 da dagga 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 da dagga 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 da dagga da dagga da da, right? Now I may not be a huge fan of such music because the 7 is a bit forceful for me. Like I'm not able to think a bit. I'm not able to divide it into small compartments. I have to look at it as 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5. So in some riffs you may be forced to make such a big tune that it goes to 7, right? But then good composers will use nice melodic accents, or good drummers will obviously find a way to make all this sound cool. So can you not just move on from here? You can do 5 plus this is 10 So what if you add another 3 plus 3? Well, then that'll end up becoming a 4 by 4, isn't it? So if you think about it, there may be some songs which you listen to which eventually add up to 16 or 4 by 4. Now, if you can get the listener, as I told Nikhil in the earlier question, to feel the pulse while this music is happening, then fair enough, then it makes sense. So you could always look at odd time signatures or any time signature. You don't have to call it odd or even or anything. A time signature has its phrases, right? Or rather, your music has its phrases, and by the end of the musical phrase, if there happen to be 31 beats or 10 beats or whatever number of beats, so be it. The question you should ask yourself is, do you enjoy the phrase? If you enjoy the phrase, it's because simple humans generally like small numbers, and some drummers swear by just saying life is about twos and threes. It's not even on fours. Some drummers don't even like the number 4. So I'm actually adding 4 to make it a little bit more complicated. But a lot of musicians are sort of count bigger structures using that. Now, the other way to do it is using the pulse approach, right? So this is what I learned with a song of ours. You can listen to this song by my band Allegro Fudge. It's called Enchantress and the Hillbillies. It's from one of our pretty much our only album. We may do that song once more with my other band. So with a pulse way of observing, you can notate your music using maybe a 7 by 4 rather than a 7 by 8. So there's a little bit of a functional difference between a 7 by 8 and a 7 by 4. A 7 by 4 is pretty much your head is moving in cycles of 7, because the by 4 ends up always representing the pulse value. So if I have to make a song on 7 by 4, now I'm not thinking about accents. I'm not thinking on 3, 4 and 2. I'm just trying to make the listener move to the same pulse, but then the pulse length or the cycle length ends up being 7. And so it is. There's again, so a lot of this, when you make music like this, you don't know how you made it. Like example, Money by Pink Floyd is a great, I think, a 7 by 4 example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, your head is moving exactly on the 7, right? So what I tried to do with Enchantress was I made a riff which has a cycle of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot of people may count this as 7, 8, but when I'm feeling it, this is how I move my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it moves pretty much like that. Because it's very tough to count these numbers and play. That's for some real clever people who can get things done efficiently. But I never knew it was 7, and I never cared. In fact, I always thought that it was a 4 by 4. I used to keep telling drummers for 2 years or 3 years, until some drummer who was not even my band's drummer said it's a 7 by 4. Right? I didn't know. It never occurred to me, So sometimes as a composer you don't know this. So my trick, if you reverse engineer it for your own learning, is think about it in terms of small phrases and also see how the pulse responds. And by the time you finish your head movement, by the time that cycle ends, it'll be dung da da dung dung pum 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 pa ba bum pum 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 pa da dum pa ba bum pum pum. Or if you want to move your head faster, pum pa ba bum pum 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 psych da 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 pum 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 pa da dum pum 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 pa, and so on. So that's one way to feel the time signature. Now if your pulse is not working, then go with the phrasing. Phrasing could also be termed as accents. You could also term these as accents, if you will. Some people call it as accents, but I just prefer to say, see, I'm building a musical phrase. This is the phrase. So, Tararam, pararararar, tarararam, pararam, pam, parararam, tararagadagadagadagadam, pa ba 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 bum. Now, I really liked what I did just now, right? Actually, I didn't. I don't know if I liked it. I can't remember it. But it felt cool. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to muscle memory that on my instrument and see if it comes out well. And if it does come out well, so what? That's the song. You don't have to brand it as anything. If someone wants to call it odd, fair enough. It's not odd for me. It's just a song which I made the other day. You know, the thought process was the same. I wanted to make a song. I made the song. So yeah, sometimes I keep talking like this when it comes to time signature, because in our college you used to have all these band competitions where they would keep telling us, unless you play very technical stuff, you may not win first prize and all that. Then we would forcefully try and make what was a nice 4x4 into some random 13 by something, and we play it. We may win the event, but then we'll never want to play that song ever again. We'll go back to Bon Jovi, you know. So maybe when you make songs, make it from the heart. Like, let it come out the way it should come out. The song is bigger than us, all of us put together, right? The song just happens. So we are just vessels for the song, ideally. So let the song come out however it wants to, and if it comes out nice, if you enjoy it, if you want to be part of the experience, it's your song. You just take it and it's yours, right? So the same thing I would argue if you were to figure out the rhythm of a Beatles song or anything, right? If you take Novi, the lot of Beatles songs have some very odd time. Maybe some of you can type it later, or yeah. So there's so many songs out there. Like even the Mission Impossible theme song is on 5, from what I know, isn't it? Dang 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 4 5 1 2 3 4. Yeah, it's pretty much on 5. We hear that every day, right? We're watching MI. So cool. Hopefully that answers your question. So there's no rocket science for odd time. Just figure out if you're tracking your head movement or if you're tracking the phrase. I guess if I have to put it in a nutshell, to figure out any time signature, you want to call it even, odd. Well, even 12 by something is even. 20 is also even. 10 is also even. So this whole odd number and even number thing, I think the odd number just makes it subconsciously a little busier. So that may also be a small tip for all of you. If you feel a little bit busy, if you feel a little not so resolved, it may be odd for all you know. It doesn't have to be, but it may be odd. But I think these are two tried and tested ways which I've personally tried out, and it's been working quite well for me, because when the phrasing fails for me, if I'm too lazy to figure out this entire huge phrase, I'll just go with the pulse. Maybe I'm the song's appealing to me with my head, with the way my body is moving, or I have to go by the way they made the phrase, which is the maths part. So a good example could be Irish music or Celtic music, because they make almost all their music like this. There's a specific song which we cover in our band called Fire Dance, by this band called River Dance. I'll request, we'll try and put it up on the chat. So that goes, the phrasing is really cool. He's like, so those are two sevens, right? I guess you all could hear that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and another two sevens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the lazy part. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. So there's actually that whole melody is built around the excitement and also the way the dancer dances. If you watch them dancing, you'll really understand the point of that music. It's also not for the musician's intellectual progress. It's also to make the dancer look good, you know. So that's another reason why you do things. So if you follow a bit of Irish folk music, just simple folk songs. You'll be very pleasantly surprised. Man, there's no 4x4 happening anywhere, you know. So maybe build your vocabulary like that. Listen to progressive bands like Rush, Dream Theater to help you with your accents and phrasing. You can also listen to Beatles. There'll always be something Beatles will do to go crazy with music. So you can follow them and follow simple folk music. If you take even Kerala folk songs, you'll find that a lot of the songs are on 7. At least from what I've heard. I've heard a lot of these songs and there are some songs which are 4x4, but you will not know it's 4 because of the way they use the accents. And then if you ask a traditional musician, that guy will say, I don't know, I'm just playing you a song. This is how we play our music. Just follow it. So that's the way it is. Follow different cultures. That may also help. Because as we evolve from different parts of the world with different clothing, different hairstyle, different everything, one would imagine that music sensibilities also evolve radically differently in different parts of the world, be it the uh, east versus west, or even within the east. Like I said, Kerala music is probably very different than other music from the same state, from the same part of India, right? So that's the whole idea. So hope that answered your question to some level.
Yes.
Probably I'll come back. Okay, let's open Akshay for his question. Akshay has a question, if you're there. Okay, we'll go ahead to Varun.
Hey Jason.
Hey Varun, yeah.
Yeah, so I have two questions. One on so I always struggle with this quarter note triplet. I struggle to count the quarter note triplet. Eighth note triplet is easy: 1 2 3 2 2 3 3 2 3 4 2 3. But I never can get the feel of this quarter note triplet. So wanted some tips, advice on how do you count a quarter note triplet and how do you feel a quarter note triplet.
Sure. Let's try and figure this out. So I'll try and so what he's asking is pretty much a triplet, but then we brand it as a quarter note triplet because it's a little sort of a more groovier triplet than the other triplets. So what I guess Varun said in the beginning of his question was, if you have to count these sort of triplets over a pulse. Let me just try and draw it with some notation. I'm not a very notation person, but I will try my best. So these possibly represent our eighth note triplet domain, right? So eighth note triplets. So what, for want of a better word, I guess they say eighth note triplet, because what used to probably happen with notation experts is an eighth note actually divides a crotchet or a quarter note into two equal units or two even beats. Divide by 2. So what they are doing with a triplet is they take the same quarter note and divide that into 3/8 notes, as we call it. So the maths does not add up clearly. The first thing is to understand or to tell yourself eighth notes, quarter notes, 16th notes don't have anything much to do with maths beyond a point, right? It's more how you use them and what you call them. So when you say a 16th note, it's very difficult to claim that it's 1/16th of something. Some people will say it's 1/16th of a big oval note, a whole note. But my argument is, who uses this note in the first place? Right? If you were to build a melody with just semi-breves, I don't know if you're ever going to get a job or as anyone in the industry. So I would say let's not, it's just a convention. 16th notes, 8th notes. But please, for all of you watching, this has nothing much to do with the maths. This 1/8 does not influence music that much. Probably it does not influence it at all. So let's first practice how you count eighth note triplets. So what happens happens if I keep my pulse going as this? I'm dividing the pulse into 3 equal units. And what's also nice is you can build on that, build phrases. Now one might argue that this is a 3/4, but then it's too fast to be a 3/4, right? So you'd rather say it's 4/4 because the cycle length is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So for your head, again follow your head. Your head is moving like that. Your head is not getting a fit and moving in triplets like this. You're not shaking and moving so fast. So I guess the denominator in a time signature is how your body feels it. Okay, so now coming to his other question, what is a quarter note triplet? So a quarter note triplet, I think before you study that, try to first build permutations out of eighth note triplets themselves. Perhaps you could do this following maybe this guy, and this creates a very interesting vibe. Maybe how do we do this now? Okay, so now you're making the eighth note triplets a bit more dynamic, a bit more exciting for the ear, as opposed to not too bad. But then with this guy, you're using only melody to build it, right? Here you're using melody and rhythm. So similarly, you could drop the on beat perhaps and just keep the off beat, right? Or you could just keep the first two offs and first two beats, sub beats, and leave the third one off, or perhaps you could yeah, you get the idea, or do off on on. Actually, these are just binary permutations. So if you go check this out. Now I'm doing this just to make the energy a little lesser. Maybe I'll combine it with just a simple crotchet. So da 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 down down da 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 down down da 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 down down da 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 down da 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 down pow pa 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 da 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 da. So you see what's happening? I'm trying to really explore eighth note triplets. So what Varun said was in his question, maybe I'm rephrasing it, but he was like, yeah, eighth note triplets are quite obvious. The first thing before we get into quarter note triplets is try to make the eighth notes itself less obvious, and then try going beyond that, and eventually you'll hopefully realize that quarter note triplets are not too difficult at all. It's just one of these permutations coming together, right? So let's just try and build a few things. Maybe this meets that, right? So da 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 da. Let's try and do something with these two perhaps, which I'm pointing. I quite like that. This one meets this one. Swing meets whatever you want to call that, right? So maybe we should have a name for all of these. See, this they call swing, dun da dun, but why can't we give a name for everything else? Perhaps that should happen soon. Okay, so you have dunk dunk da da dunk dunk da da dunk dunk da 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 dunk dunk. I'm ending with a nice triplet drum roll, just for fun. Dunk dunk dugga dunk dunk dugga dunk dunk dugga dugga da dugga da dunk dunk dugga. Isn't this like every movie theme score ever built? Okay, so I'm hoping you can also translate this to your other whatever instruments you play. Now coming to a quarter note triplet question, one might definitely argue that just like eighth notes and quarter notes, eighth notes are what? Double the speed of a quarter note, isn't it? An eighth note is double of the quarter. That means you fit in more data in the space of the same amount. Okay, so if we have to build quarter note triplets, what you could do is create something like this, where what was once this can now perhaps be something like this. So I'm just leaving a rest in between. Sorry, I forgot to put the 3 sign. 3 is needed. Why? Because then it tells us that it's a triplet. So what I'm going to do is every alternate beat I'm going to not play. I'm creating a rest. So where is my next rest going to be? At this particular point, right? So I'll put a rest here, I'll play a note here, rest. So it's essentially note rest, note rest, note rest, or rest note, rest note, rest note, depending on how we are looking at it. Okay, so triplet. Now I have a note, then I have the same figure. You see the figure repeats, doesn't it? It's the same figure. By figure I mean the same musical pattern. So this becomes, if you practice this, you can do that. I hope you're getting me. So da ta 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 ta. So now the pulse of my song is here, right? 1 2 1. So what you start off with as so this, if you ask me, could end up being a what? This is an eighth note triplet, so we call this ideally as a quarter note triplet, and then they rewrite it using quarter notes like that, because all of that equals to a minim. So quarter note something will equate to a minim. 2 quarters become a minim. 3 quarter note triplets becomes a minim. Minim means 2 counts or 2 beats. Similarly, 3 eighth notes equals to a crotchet or a quarter note. So that's generally how I would advise you to build your triplets. And then in similar ways, you could have a half note triplet, which is a lot slower, which will finish off over the entire bar. So with a half note triplet, again, you're going to give more gaps, right? What was once one gap, you're going to give even more gaps. You'll give 3 gaps and not have this fellow, not have that guy. Just putting an X there. Then you're not going to have this guy, I guess. Yeah, and this guy. Yeah, something like this. So ultimately you're still in the eighth note triplet world, but you're not playing all the eighth notes. You're not going dagada 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 dagada, which is very machine gun like, isn't it? So you're trying to go inside that by making these rests. So maybe this is one way of feeling it. There could be a few other ways in which people also feel polyrhythms and a few other more advanced phrases. In fact, this could end up being a polyrhythm, because you're counting 1 2 and you're doing 1 and 1 and and 1 and 1 and so in a sense you are feeling a 3 over a 2. So if you want to call this a polyrhythm, you can feel free, I guess. But then there could be a more efficient way to build polyrhythms in a bigger environment. We can get to that maybe in another question. So I hope this question 1 of yours at least is okay, Varun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you. So I'll come back to you, Varun, probably at the end. I'll just like to hear from one or two more students. John, if you're there, you can ask your question.
Yes. Hi, Jason.
Possible you can just put on your video. I can't
Yes,
see.
yes, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, Jason, my question, I have a couple of questions. The first one is how to effectively count and learn and subdivide any sort of time signatures.
Okay.
And That is one question I have. For example, if I'm taking a context of, say, the regular 4/4 timing,
Right.
how can I count a dotted eighth?
Right.
How can I subdivide a dotted eighth in between? For example, it's a regular thing for guitarists, like adding dotted eighth, the delays and all over the 4/4 beats, right? So how to effectively uh, count those timings
Okay.
over another
So
one?
okay, so we'll just do, probably we'll attempt both of your questions as quick as we can, because we have a
Yes,
few more people to ask as well.
sure,
So
sure.
yeah, so your first question, can you just reiterate your first question again? You said,
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
How to effectively learn and subdivide any sort of time signatures?
awesome. Great. So in other words, you want to do dotted, you want to do divide by 2, you want to do this. So great. So what you could do for practicing divisions is, first of all, I've talked about this earlier in the class. I don't want to repeat. I've already said that there are a few ways in which you could practice dividing the beat, and dividing the beat is one of the most important ways to groove. Now you can either divide the beat in even time or in straight time, or you can swing the beat where the subdivision doesn't occur exactly at the halfway midway point, or you can divide the beat into the world of triplets. Right, you could have eighth note triplets, dagada 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 dagada, or dagada 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 dagada. You can have the 16th note triplets as well. Similarly, eighth notes or even feel would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now why are we saying 1 and 2 and, or why are we saying 1e and a 2e and a 3e and a 4e and? Because we are trying to develop a kind of a time grid inside us to respond or react to these offbeats. As Nikhil also asked the question earlier, it's the same explanation. I told him practice the E of the 2 or something. So by that argument, it's the same thing. You need to draw out your grid. But how do you get better with this? Well, I'll give you one quick trick which I did not talk about earlier. So if you're playing a simple a simple piece of music, let's say I take a nursery rhyme, you know, or let's take another nursery rhyme which is a bit easier. So this appears to be very quarter note driven, right? Very pulse driven. So in my mind, what I'd like to feel while playing this melody is try out some of the other time feels, because right now I'm in no time feel. I haven't divided the beat into anything. So if you take Twinkle or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, yeah, this can really help. And I'm for all of you watching, we'll put out a link where we talk about this song Ode to Joy, which is a very famous classical piece where we do pretty much the same thing. So there's this song called Ode to Joy, which I explain using triplets, using a lot of advanced things. So you can just type Ode to Joy on YouTube and you'll get it. But anyway, I'm going to show this using Twinkle Twinkle, which is everyone's favorite song, I'm sure. Okay, so you go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... What am I doing? I am adding the additional beat in my mind, even though the beat is not being played on the keyboard. So what can I do with that additional beat? I can play some arpeggios. As a pianist, we can do that. As a drummer, you could do ghost notes, perhaps. Now, what if I divide this song into 16th notes? 1 bringing in some of those flavors in my piano playing. It's actually enhancing my piano playing. It's no longer about the melody, it's what I'm doing around the melody. Right? So what if we have done all the straight divisions? Why can't we even do triplets? One triplet, one triplet, triplet, triple, or right. So what I would advise you to do, if you're a keyboard player or if you're a drummer, take the simplest groove or the simplest tune or the simplest ever thing you've ever done and explore all the three time fields or time worlds or time division systems or whatever you want to call this, and that becomes your challenge, that becomes your exercise, I guess. So what better way to start with something and then mess it up a bit, rhythmically. So do watch that. And another way, hopefully another answer to your question would be, uh, how can you feel the pulse over whatever time division system you're doing? That is where I'd request you all to watch another video of mine on YouTube, where I've explained the popular A.R. Rahman song Urvashi on the bass guitar by demonstrating how I try to play it more in time, and focus more on my timing. Of course, there's a part 1 where we talk about clarity of the notes. I would request that you all watch the part 2 of that series. Right? There are a lot of videos I've done on our YouTube channel where I focus a lot on timing, right? And I see a few questions by Ashwini, who's mentioned something about the clave and all that. And Varun, yeah, thanks a lot for your questions. I have a lot of questions going on, but whoever has a question and whoever's watching, first of all, thank you. It's highly recommended, and I would really request you if you could send us all of your questions to our email ID music@nathanielschool.com. We will definitely keep you informed and bring you into our next class, where that's how the 20 question show works. Whoever comes in for my class, I will answer your questions. So make sure you are part of the class. And I see quite a few awesome questions on YouTube. Please send them to us on email and we'll be happy to answer them. Right? So I hope that answered your question, John. Moving on, if we can hear from Akshay, if you're there.
Hi, Jason. I'm here.
Hi. Yeah. If possible, your
Yeah.
video.
Yeah. 1 second.
It's taking time. It's fine. Anyway, you're on.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. Shoot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what. So I wanted to ask a very generic question. Like I'm a drummer and a band manager here. So I also run a recording studio. So, but
Okay.
in my studio, I'm not able to record drums. My kit is like very basic kit, and it's not something where I can record the drum. So we usually, whenever we record our band song and all of it, or actually go somewhere else and record the drum.
Okay.
So I wanted to know, what would you like suggest? Like, is it like, would you suggest us to actually get a live drumming, or would you suggest us to program the drum kit, or would you suggest us to record a drum kit and probably change it with the samples or something? What is that
Sure.
you would suggest?
Awesome. So thanks for your question. So I'll have to ask you a couple of questions now in order to answer that question. But I think it's a simple
Yes.
answer and it
Yeah.
should be fun and educational for everyone, hopefully. So, first question to you is
Right.
how is your drummer? Is he a nice drummer?
Yes. I play drums. I'm a drummer
Oh, you
myself.
play
So
drum. Then obviously you're the You're
Yes, yes, yes.
definitely you are the guy. So you want your drums to sound awesome. You're very well invested in this project, I would imagine, as the drummer.
Right,
So
right,
if you believe
right.
that the drums, when played by a human, is awesome, and
Hmm.
that experience, that raw energy, is what you want to convey to your audience, then you need to figure out a way to go real drums, right?
Right,
However, if
right.
your music is more, I would say, ad jingle based or more commercial, where you use a lot of electronic elements and a few other elements, then perhaps you can look at the idea of programming. Now, programming also occurs in two ways. One is you can program it using a keyboard by actually playing the piano keys or using pads. I personally would never do pad programming, because pad programming, I don't feel it on my finger. First of all, programming drums is a weird thing. You're in very scary territory because you know that a drummer is going to do a great job if they practice and if they know their song and if they have a kit and if they have the facilities. So you would want that. We all want that, and I'm sure we all agree on that. But his question is, how do you survive in the event that you don't have the budget, or you don't have the finances, or you don't have the time, or your drummer may not be good enough. Of course, hopefully, I'm sure you are an awesome drummer. So anyway, so what you need to focus on is, if you're doing keyboard drumming, see, that itself is a skill, to program drums on a keyboard or on a pad, because there are so many people who are who do it so well. And for a start, you can just, you know check out, some of these guys name, I forget their names, but they actually do like keyboard drumming. And I've shared it with a few professional drummer friends, and they are like, man, what on earth is happening? How do I play that? It's such a great drum performance played on a keyboard. And I've seen a lot of people also do this with an iPad. There are so many iPad people now. You may be wondering that this is not so good, or this is not the right thing to do. But then, if someone has practiced his or her art to
Hmm.
do that on an instrument like a keyboard or a pad programming system, I'm sure there are many who do all your quick hi-hat stuff. For that, a pad programmer may actually be better and more equipped than the average drummer, right? So assuming that you want to grow your drumming skills, assuming that you want to keep it human, and assuming you want to send your energy out in its rawest form to your fans, especially if you're a newcomer musician, you want that. You want the real sound to go out to people. Coming to that requirement, first of all, respect the fact that it can be done through programming. And it is not wrong. It's not some taboo. It's sort of like auto tuning. So why do we auto tune? Well, one reason is because the singer sucks, right? That's probably the biggest reason. But the other reason could also be for certain sound requirements. You want to add a certain effect. So when you dive a bit deeper into something as taboo as auto tune, you realize that even that is a creative tool. So programming drums could also be looked at as maybe like what we do in our studio. The drummer will play a superb groove, an excellent drum performance, and then we just add certain elements like toms or electronic snare build-ups, just to make the real performance a lot more heightened. And I'm sure a lot of drummers do that. I'm sure the drummer only will do it himself if he could use electronic software, right? So you could consider the idea of programming. If you get damn good at your keyboard, drumming, finger drumming, or whatever you want to call that, um, you could also look at it as a hybrid. You could look at real drums meets, with Ableton, whatever elements there are, or in Logic you may have samples. uh, However, the approach which I like to follow is an approach which I used to follow way back in the day, probably the first recording I ever did. And I got thrown into the deep end. There was this drummer in my band and a few other bands who used to come to my studio, and I loved drums, and till today it's probably my favorite instrument, even though I don't play it. But I just love jamming and working with these drummers. So it felt really unnatural for me to do programming as a young musician growing up as a producer. So I did whatever it takes. I we had a jam room, so I had a 4-channel audio interface, and believe it or not, if you tune your drums well, and if you have a good drummer, that's why I asked the first question. You have to look at the level here. It starts with
Right.
the drummer. It starts with the
Correct.
drummer, your song, your music, and your band. And it starts with your passion for music. It always begins there. After that, it's the drum kit, the accessories, the sticks, the whatever else, right? So if you are a damn good drummer, like, or if you feel that you like your drumming and you want to put your drumming out there on the record, you can actually claim that maybe I'm a damn good drummer. I like my drumming, but I have a fairly average drum kit. So what? I'm going to still record. Right, now I'll tell you how. So if you actually want to record with a, let's say, a crappy drum kit, which I definitely agree that I had back in the day where we recorded. It's some first level Mapex, entry level Mapex kit, which was broken up and skins were almost busted and whatnot. But I had a good drummer and I worked hard with him, right? So I pushed him. I made sure he recorded really well. And then I had to push myself, because if there's really good drum recording, if he's played so well and now it sounds bad, then who are we going to blame? You can't blame the drummer, you have to blame the engineer or the producer. So then, like I said, I dived into the deep end, and figured it out, and that's where I learned things like drum sampling, where even though you have a very poorly recorded kick, you can reinforce it with a software kick if you have a problem. And till today I do it. Nowadays I don't do it because the kick sounds bad. I do it because I want to enhance that kick. So I have the sample, maybe I have sample 2, sample 3, then real kick, then sub kick. Maybe I'll have all these ingredients causing the kick drum. Maybe I even want an electronic kick to be layered with that particular kick. So I could even have 6 kicks in one song. And now me telling you this, you may realize, what's wrong with this guy? Why does he do it so? Why are you losing the organic flavor? Ultimately, my song, no one is going to judge the kick drum. My target audience is music lovers. So I don't care how I get someone to like the song, as long as they like my song, right? So that's the goal. The eventual goal is that. So as a drummer, always try to record live drums, but invest in simple gear, a minimum of 4 mic setup, kick, snare, overhead. I can guarantee you, not I can guarantee you, look at how Led Zeppelin recorded their drums. John Bonham has recorded for his pretty much his whole career with a 4 micing technique used by the engineer Glyn Johns, which is a recording technique. And you listen to Led Zeppelin and you feel like there are 20 mics, it doesn't, it's actually 3 or 4 mics which were used. So that's really the engineer. So it boils down to the drummer and the engineer, the human beings in the room. It boils down to that. So up your skills as a drummer, up your skills as an engineer, and leave all the rest to mere details. Trust me, all that remaining stuff will be about 20%. What matters is still the drummer and the engineer, the person managing the recording, because ultimately it's a human job. So you have to back your skills, and you can work with the worst tools in the market. It doesn't matter. You can work. Free softwares are beautiful these days. My software is Reaper, which is actually an open source. I shouldn't say free, but I use that. I have no problem with Reaper. So softwares have been very affordable these days. Gear is also quite affordable. Drum kits cost a lot lesser. One problem, though, I would unfortunately end my conversation by saying, is you also have to deal with your neighbors. So that is something you have to watch out for. Befriend them, for give them some food, or biryani or something like that to I don't know what. Yeah, that is unfortunately beyond my territory. I may have a few tips for that which I can give you maybe after this class, but you get the idea, right? So there's nothing wrong with any of the styles of recording you've suggested. First, back the real guy. You are the drummer, so for you I would say you have to drum. Now, who is the engineer? If you are the engineer, you have to engineer. You have to do it on your own. So leave the rest to it will all happen. Just first say, I'm going to do it. You know, I'm going to somehow record drums. I don't want to book a studio. I just want to do it in my bedroom. It's going to sound good. You have to first tell yourself that. And it will. It will somehow sound good. I can guarantee you. So also the mindset needs to be there when you're a newish recording person, I guess. Okay, great. Thanks for your question. We shall move on to Shrikant's question. And then probably we are done because he's the last student here. Or if I've missed out anyone else's questions, we can talk about that as well. Yeah, Shrikant. Hi.
Hi, Jason. So my question comes from a Spotify suggestion that I was listening to earlier.
Awesome.
So while listening to the song, the first section had an interesting rhythm part on it. So I tried to figure out how it was broken up. So I could see that it was a breakage of sevens, threes, and fives. I sent this back over to my friend, and he comes back saying that it's sixes and fours. So eventually we both agreed that it all adds up to 32, and it's a 4/4 of 16 bars. So my question is, if we break up 16 bars of 4/4 into different odd times, will that become polyrhythm or just a fancy way of counting 4/4?
Sure. Great. Thanks for the question. First of all, I'd like the name of this song so we can just sort of run it through right now in the class.
Yeah, it's I think it's Lucid by Hoves. Hoves 3.
Okay, is it something like this?
Yeah, that's the song. Yeah.
Awesome, great. So I have the song with me. So your question is that a polyrhythm, or how do you count it, or how do I prove to my friend that I'm better than that guy or something?
It's not about that. So I just wanted to understand if basically the concept of polyrhythm got confused. I got confused with the concept of polyrhythm while listening to this. So it's just 4/4, or is it polyrhythmic, or just a fancy way of 4/4?
I think, see, first of all, when we use the word poly, I've heard of these words poly used either as a polyrhythm structure. This is an advanced question, so everyone please bear with us if you're not advanced. But it'll be fun, I hope. So we're going to listen to a very cool song. Okay, so you have polyrhythm, which talks about how two meters work in tandem or in parallel with each other. For example, you run a 4 along with a 3. Okay, so if I have to run a 4 along with a 3, one quick, crude and simple way could be, maybe I'll do 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a, and accent at 1E and 2 and 3E and 1E and 2 and 3E, 1 2 3 4. So I'm getting a 4 over a this thing, a 3 pulse, isn't it? This is my main pulse. So I go 1E and a 2E and a 3E and 1E, and you see the way I'm speaking, 1E and E, 1E and E, 1E. Some Carnatic musicians will explore this with konokol. Like instead of saying takadimi, 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 they'll be like takit, 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 takit. 4 takitas, 4 threes are 12. So in essence, polyrhythms is more about combining numbers. And where have we learned that in maths class? LCM, lowest common multiple. Lowest common multiple of 3 and 4 equals to 12. So you set up a time grid of 12 beats, and a polyrhythm is just like any other time zone. So right now I'm feeling 3/4. My music is 3/4, but dividing the 3 into 4 equal units and creating an accented pattern which I circled here. And because the accented pattern is even, as you can see here, there's da da da, there's 3 and then the next one, 3 and then this thing, next one, I guess, right? Like that, 3 and then the next one. So it's evenly divided. So it gives you this feeling of 4 against 3 or over 3. Like you're feeling a 3, but then you're also feeling a 4, or you could also feel a 4. Now you may argue, how do I do this over a 3:5? Well, it's simple. Do 3:5. LCM equals to who? 15. Now you need to write a grid and start counting, right? So that's pretty much how it will work. So polyrhythms is about superimposition of two time signatures together. For example, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 1 E and 2 E and right? 1 E and 3 1 E. I'm just saying this out for your reference because everything's different. 1 E and E, 1 E and E, 1 E and E, 1 E, right? But 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. Superimposed, right? A polymeter, on the other hand, is like some of our earlier examples. Some of you asked a couple of questions where you have, a 5 meets up with 7, then says hi to a 3, then, goes to a 4, and blah, blah, blah. So this, if you ask me, becomes a polymeter. And a polymeter phrase can be something like a 5/8 meets maybe a 7/4, It doesn't have to be 5/8 meets 7/8. So progressive rock bands are more famous for maybe polymeters, at least bands like Dream Theater, while polyrhythms could be felt by anyone for that matter. Right? Polyrhythms are very part of a lot of the cultures we know. So now coming to your song, with respect to this song which you've mentioned, let's first, the way I like to analyze music, and I have analyzed this song just before the class, and I've analyzed it in a very strange way. I'm going to explain. This is how I started. I wanted to show you how it all happened and what I ended up with, to a point that I can play it on my piano. I'm a piano player. I can play it on the piano and I'm happy. That's my goal. I don't care too much like I said, like I've been repeatedly saying, when you learn rhythm, don't obsess over the math too much. It's a lot of fun. I love it. I love talking about the maths and fighting with people about it. But when it's you and the song, it should be you being first and foremost being able to play the song, being able to count the song, being able to bond with the song in a musical way, not as a fan. As a fan, I'm sure we all are going to love this song. So as a musician, you have to find a way to connect with it. So think of those eventual goals. You have to play this on the piano. So my goal was, I tried. It was maybe 10 minutes or so before you guys joined the class. So I haven't finished it, and I knew you'll ask the first part only because the first part was the interesting part. So I had to figure out the first part. So we'll do that. Now you have mentioned that you are counting it in some really weird way, 3 4 2 something. Well, even I tried counting it in some weird way. Lot of it failed, something succeeded, but as it turns out, one way is you can also slow down on YouTube. You have these settings, right? Playback speed. You can go here. Old Windows Media Player tricks back in the day. You can actually slow it down. So these tools help, and I would highly encourage it. If you're not hearing things well, slow it down and see. So let's just hear the piece of music and see what we have to deal with. First off, it's a 3-piece song. piano, drums, and bass. But the bass is sort of just pretty much comping with the piano and following the kick drum. So maybe you'd want to follow pretty much the piano and the drums because they start us off. So what I like to do is first listen to it and sing what you can sing. First sing what you can sing. And the overall goal is, we will get to the geeky stuff eventually. But I'm trying to show you the workflow. I tried the geeky approach. It was not working out. Then I just went to a little bit more musical approach. And believe it or not, it just happened. It took me about 5 minutes after that. Okay, so if I have to play this back, I'm gonna first try to sing the piano, the bass of the piano, and the drum groove, because that is what I am faced to hear. So I have to now acknowledge these three elements because that is what's making my song, isn't it? So let's start with the piano, which is super easy. It's playing a melody. Try to get used to that. Something like that. So you kind of know what it is, but you don't know exactly where those beat hit points are. This is a very interesting phrase, very accented really beautifully well. So it's like a puzzle. You're trying to slowly fit the pieces together, I guess. You can't start with the whole puzzle. It won't come to you immediately. So first start with the piano and let that melody drive you. Try to sing that along. Something like that. Okay, and then try doing the bass stuff. Now sing that. Maybe go to the beginning. I'm singing the bass. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Lovely bass line. Ba 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 ba. Actually, it's the bass of the piano, but now bass. Dum bum bum bum. Real bass. So the bass player is following the chords of the piano, but he's also grooving with the drums. So now let's figure out what the drum is doing. So what was the piano doing? Da 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 da, something like that. Bass, pum 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 pum. Okay, and what's the drummer doing? So for me, I'm liking this simple dum ta dum ta dum dum ta dum ta dum. It's a beautiful way of kick and snare chatting with each other, right? So you go dum ta dum ta dum dum, and of course that's gonna be varied a bit by the drummer. So I've just got some puzzle pieces now in play, right? So and also hopefully I've told you guys what to listen for. So piano in a crude way is doing something like something like that, and the bass is doing boom 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 boom, something in the deep end, and the drummer is doing doom ta doom 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 ta doom ta, something like that. Let's just get used to that again, and I'll play it for a few seconds. Okay, that's one analysis point. The other analysis point is your head, for some reason, continues to move to the pulse, even though there's all these weird hit points and accents going on. So your head is doing very pulse-like movement. Check that out. 1, 2. Yes, but sometimes you follow the piano because the piano is just before the pulse. But your head will never lie. Your head is always going to move to the pulse. So rely on the head because that's going to be your base for everything, I guess. Boom, 2, 3, something. even. Pum, pum. Feel that also, the pulse. Okay. Okay, so now my analysis points come to the everything. I've tried to put everything into the picture when I'm analyzing it, right? So the piano is doing these chords like this. Okay, we'll just take that figure for now. Right? And then, okay, and then, right? Lot of nice ending chords. Maybe that in a harmony class we can analyze it further, I guess. Okay, so now I'm not able to play it that well, because if I have to only get the piano, there's a lot of gaps in the piano, isn't it? I think till here I got, because here I've counted the piano 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4. So far I'm on the piano. That's why I put a gap here. 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 1 2. Now I'm relying on my drums. My drummer is in this section. He's actually doing a very 6 feel, where he's doing dum kata daga dum kata. So we're gonna figure this rhythm out. Okay, dum kata. So what I wrote here is dum kata dum kata dum kata. So 1 2 3 4 5 1 2. I just thought I'll say it like this to make me feel it a bit better, right? And I'm not a beatboxer, so I just thought I'll write these syllables. So dum kata daga dum kata. So that's this figure. So here you're relying on the piano. Da 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 dum kata ta dum kata. Oh, I need to practice this more, but you get the idea. Down 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 dum kata daga dum kata. So just this becomes a nice figure. Dum kata daga dum kata daga, and I've counted that as 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1. I don't know. I think you can count it as 5 5 2. I at one point I heard the piano and then counted it as 3 5 4, but it adds up to 12. That's why I wrote 6 feel. So if you tell a drummer, play me a nice 6 feel drum groove, maybe this would just make a nice 6 feel drum groove, isn't it? So da 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 dum kata daga dum kata daga da da, and here we do a triplet or a group of 3. So you have the same dum kata. So if you can imagine dum kata, it may help you count this better. 1 2 3 4 5 dum kata 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3. There's a 5 somewhere here, isn't there? And then you do dum kata daga dum kata tagida dum, and then the piano. So use the drums to help you with this section and the piano melody to help you with this particular section. And sometimes I'm hearing a piano playing. The piano does a nice triplet here, which makes this 3 very obvious. So I think we have to call this 3. And listen to your drummer as well. That can really help you out. So let's put this all together with me just saying some random nonsense, but hopefully that makes sense. I'll sing, I'll start doing some drumming stuff, but ultimately it's what works for me, you know. So because I'm hearing a song and I feel that you need to survive the song. So if you're a piano player, you don't only hear the piano. The piano is playing because of the drums is playing because of the piano, and everyone is playing because of the song ultimately. So hear the song and let the song drive you, and it's a really nice song. And before you start extrapolating things, enjoy the music first. So I actually heard this a couple of times just to enjoy it. I just heard maybe the first 2 minutes, and even though I may have had 10-15 minutes to analyze this before this class, I get the feeling that you need to first enjoy the song, hear it a few times, and by enjoying it, it gets digested somehow, and then you can figure things out a bit quicker. Okay, so let's see. 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 dum dum kata dum kata daga dum kata dagida dum dum ta dum chika dum kata dum kata. Right? That's what may help. And of course, slow it down. Playback speed on YouTube may be helpful. Spotify, I don't think, has that feature, but you could try playing it on YouTube. It has that option. I think it's a very helpful educational tool to slow down the song, and you'll hear it a lot better, right? So that's how you can sort of survive. So if I'm playing it on the piano, as a complete noob to this song, just started off, you can get somewhere with it. Drummer comes in, right? I'm relying on I'm hanging on to that drummer for real life. I'm not counting fives and sevens and weird numbers. Survival is based on this, at least for me, and I have a feeling it will be for all of you. So when you're playing music, and if you'll enjoy the music, enjoy each other's company, enjoy the drummer, enjoy everyone, and play along with them, because then you will play better. If you keep counting 5 and 2 and try to be very intellectual, things don't actually translate into results. So what I do is I'll come back to dum kata daga dum kata tagida ta da da down dum kata daga dum kata tagida down 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 down. Now one might argue, yes, it is 32 beats in a cycle, so that probably makes it 4x4. Okay, cool. No, I would have probably enjoyed it even if it was a 31 by something. It's cool. It's not a big deal. This section, I like that section, very similar, and I like this piano hook. The piano hook was around here. So that's how I would enjoy the song, and thus that is how I would maybe want to play the song, or want to explore the song further, right? So those are my few tips on how you could navigate through a song like this, or whatever, any other song as well. Listen to it first with a kind of an open mind, and then see where it takes you, I guess. Okay, awesome guys. So thanks again for joining the class. Thanks everyone on YouTube for watching. It's been great having you all as part of this class. And as always, see you next time whenever we do this again. I look forward to having all of you join my next class as well, with whatever questions you might have, a song or a harmony doubt or a rhythm doubt or compositional doubt, or any questions which you would enjoy chatting about in a nice learning environment like this, hopefully, right? So hope you all found something useful with the lesson, and catch you guys in next one. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel without fail. We'll be releasing a lot more videos in the coming days, as we normally do. So stay safe, and catch you guys very soon.